Hello and welcome to this edition of World at War. My name is Mohammed Saleh. The oil wells of West Asia drive the global economy. But the population that keeps these oil wells functioning relies very heavily on water desalination plants for its survival. And when the bombs begin to rain down on the desalination plants of West Asia, you can be assured that the worst phase of this war has begun. In the seventh straight night of missile attacks by the Americans, the deputy governor of the southern Hormuzgan province has said that the American missiles targeted electrical facilities and water desalination pumps at Bonji along the coast, leaving at least about 20 villages without access to water. The Iranian response was to strike back at a water desalination plant in Kuwait, a tiny nation that relies on desalination for nearly 90% of its water requirements. The flow of oil from the choke point of Hormuz has again dropped to a trickle. The war that was started by Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu to denuclearize and weaken Iran has now emboldened the Iranians, who are now bristling with a new confidence that they exercise sovereignty over the Strait of Hormuz. For Donald Trump, the Iran war will define his presidency and will also dictate his legacy. Now, Trump has often insisted that he is better than even Abraham Lincoln. And so long as Iran claims to be in charge of the Strait of Hormuz, Donald Trump will not be able to walk away claiming victory in this war. Our next report tells you more. Wave after wave of American precision strikes have slammed into Iran's critical infrastructure. These images, released by the US CENTCOM, will give you a glimpse of the scale of the devastation that the Americans have been heaping on Iran night after night. Iran's southern coastline, especially along the coast of the Hormuzgan province, has taken a severe beating. Explosions have been reported in Ahvaz, Keshem, Bushehr, Dashti, Boston, Sirik and Bandar-e-Lenge, with Iranian officials reporting more extensive damage to infrastructure than during the previous rounds of attacks. Bandar Abbas, Iran's main naval hub, overlooking the Strait of Hormuz, has been amongst the hardest hit cities. The Iran Shehr airport in southeastern Iran has sustained some heavy damage after coming under attack, resulting in power outages. While authorities in Semnan have reported that the main building of a civilian airport suffered some minor damage following the US strikes. This video shows certain new tactics that the Americans have now deployed in the recent spate of attacks. A sea surface drone reminiscent of the ones the Ukrainians have extensively used to great effect against the Russian ships in the ports of the Black Sea, this time has been deployed by the Americans to strike at the Iranian ports.
I'll save the energy targets for last, but ultimately we'll hit energy targets, yeah. But we're going to hit them very hard tonight. We're going to hit them very hard tomorrow night. We're going to hit them very hard the night after. And then next week it gets really bad for them because next week comes the power plants. Next week comes the bridges. We're going to knock out all their power plants. We're going to knock out all their bridges unless they get to the table and negotiate.
The Gariye Bridge on the Bandar Abbas Khamir-La route, a bridge near the Latidan village, two bridges on the Khorestan-La road, a partially constructed bridge on the Bandar Khamir Keshen Bandar Abbas axis, and also a bridge in the Maru village have all been bombed to rubble by the Americans. Iran says this is civilian infrastructure that the Americans are destroying in Iran to inflict maximum pain on the population.
And this just in, the Secretary General remains deeply concerned by the continuing military escalation between Iran and the United States of America. He's particularly concerned about attacks on civilian infrastructure in Iran and across the region. Such attacks are unacceptable. He reiterates his firm conviction that there's no military solution to this conflict and calls for stepped-up diplomatic efforts towards a peaceful and durable settlement. Such a settlement should include the full restoration of international navigational rights and freedoms in and around the Strait of Hormuz.
Iran has responded to the American attacks by targeting the American air bases in the GCC nations. US bases and facilities in Kuwait, Bahrain and Jordan have been struck. The IRGC has said that it has destroyed a CRAM radar system, a satellite communication center, an assembly site at Kuwait's Ali Al Salam Air Base. It's also struck a fighter jet ramp and a command center at Jordan's Al Azraq base, and has attacked a wharf at Kuwait's Shuaibah port.
If the recent threats by the empty-headed President of the United States to target the infrastructure of the Islamic Republic of Iran are carried out by that country's invading military, then everything that has so far remained intact due to Iran's restraint, namely all infrastructure across the region, will be smashed by the iron blows of the powerful armed forces of the Islamic Republic of Iran, leaving no trace behind, as though it had never existed.
The Iran war stands on a precipice. There are reports that the Americans have bombed a water facility in Tehran in western Ilam province and the area around Khondab in central Markazi province. Water supply to an estimated 20 villages with a population of over 10,000 people has been disrupted. West Asia is one of the most water-scarce regions in the world, where more than 100 million people rely on water desalination plants to survive. An infrastructure of this scale, if destroyed, will take many years to rebuild. And the question is, how far does Donald Trump want to climb this devastating escalation ladder? How precarious is Pakistan's internal security situation? On the 12th of July, Maulana Fazlur Rahman, a member of Pakistan's National Assembly and the JUIF chief, painted a rather bleak picture of insurgency in the rest of Balochistan province. According to Rahman, the unrest has now spread beyond the Baloch majority districts into the Pashtun areas as well, and the government's writ, for all intents and purposes, is pretty much non-existent. Reportedly, the Baloch separatists have declared independence and claim to have seized nearly 85% of the province's territory. The development has come on the heels of a surge in militant attacks across Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. And our next report tells you as to what is happening in Pakistan at the moment.
The southwestern Balochistan province is Pakistan's largest province by territory, but the smallest in terms of population. Despite being blessed with mineral resources and vast reserves of natural gas, the province has remained the country's poorest, giving rise to a broader rebellion. The decades-old rebel movement blames the Pakistani government of neglecting its residents and unfair distribution of resources. Most prominent of these rebel groups in the rest of Balochistan province is the Baloch Liberation Army. The rebel outfit claimed that between July 1st and July 14th it launched 48 coordinated operations targeting military convoys, checkpoints, bridges and supply routes across Balochistan, in which more than 40 Pakistani security personnel were killed and several others injured. The alleged series of armed assaults and improvised explosive devices attacks took place in Mastung, Nushki Kech, Surab, Kuzdar, Ziarat, Karan and Kalat districts. The campaign was described by the Baloch Liberation Army as an ongoing effort against Pakistani security forces and included blockades on major supply routes. In response, Pakistan's military intensified counter-insurgency operations in the region, with security forces claiming to have killed dozens of militants in response. On the 8th of July, Pakistan's military acknowledged that over the last 4 days, 42 civilians and military personnel were killed in 3 militant attacks in Pakistan's rest of Balochistan province.
So, in the 3 major operations that I mentioned to you, 4 civilians were killed, and before and after that, our police personnel and army soldiers also lost their lives. In total, our casualties are 42 precious lives of this country that they have sacrificed to Allah Almighty while protecting their homeland, fighting bravely, and there are 54 terrorists who have been confirmed killed, those who were involved in these operations.
Pakistan has witnessed an escalation in violence, especially in Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, in the wake of Afghan Taliban seizing power in Kabul in August 2021. Islamabad, troubled by a rise in attacks on its security forces, has repeatedly accused the Afghan government of providing a haven to anti-Pakistan militant groups, a claim refuted by Kabul. In recent months, Pakistan has launched airstrikes on Afghan territory that it claims targets militants, but the Afghan government officials and the United Nations say have killed dozens of civilians. But the trouble for Pakistan isn't limited to its border provinces. Pakistan-occupied Kashmir is witnessing its biggest protest in years and appears to be in the throes of a major upheaval. In Rawalakot, protests demanding economic and governance reforms have continued. 14th of July turned out to be one of the deadliest days when 9 people were killed in clashes between security forces and supporters of the banned protest group, the Joint Awami Action Committee or JAAC. Reportedly, 6 protesters and 1 police officer were killed in Tarar Khal, while a protester and a security official died in a separate clash in Rawalakot. Islamabad's position over the occupied territory is being openly questioned, and the clamor for closer ties with India is increasing by the day. The very next day, violent clashes broke out during a long march to Muzaffarabad called by the JAAC, in which at least 10 people were killed and over 50 civilians were injured. With the insurgency entering a critical phase and the unrest in Pakistan-occupied Kashmir growing stronger by the day, Pakistan is finding it tough to deal with the multi-front war.
On the 13th of July, Yemen's Houthis accused Saudi Arabia of attacking Sanaa's international airport. The strike was, however, claimed by the Saudi-backed Yemeni government based in the southern port city of Aden, which said that it wanted to prevent an Iranian plane from landing in the capital city. In retaliation, the Houthis launched missiles at Abha airport in southwestern Saudi Arabia on the same day, thereby breaking a 4-year truce in the conflict between the kingdom and the Iran-aligned group. A couple of days later, the Houthis also issued a warning, saying that they will target Saudi Arabia's oil facilities and other infrastructure if the conflict escalates between the two sides. Our next report tells you more.
After 4 years of relative calm, the largely dormant conflict between the Houthis and Saudi Arabia erupted on Monday afternoon. The Houthis, officially known as Ansar Allah, are a military, political and religious movement who control northwestern Yemen and are backed by Iran. On Monday, they accused Saudi Arabia of blatant aggression, saying it had struck the runway of Sanaa's airport. Plumes of smoke were seen rising above rooftops in Sanaa after the strikes at the city's international airport. The strike was, however, claimed by Yemen's internationally recognized and Saudi-backed government, which said that its patience had finally run out and it wanted to prevent an Iranian plane from landing in the Yemeni capital.
The Yemeni legitimate government, and in coordination with regional and international partners, have tried all diplomatic and legal means to persuade the Iranian regime and the Houthi militia in Sanaa to come to their senses and refrain from violating Yemeni airspace with Iranian aircraft. This violation is not the first of its kind, but it differs from previous incidents in that it openly challenges international legitimacy. Our patience has run out. Accordingly, we will respond appropriately to this treacherous and brutal act by confronting and dealing with the hostile aircrafts violating Yemeni airspace and sovereignty through all available means.
It is to be noted that the strike on Sanaa's international airport triggered the most significant escalation between the warring sides since the United Nations brokered a truce in 2022. Responding swiftly on the same day, the Houthis launched missiles at Abha airport in southwestern Saudi Arabia in retaliation for strikes on Sanaa airport, further warning all airlines against transiting through Saudi airspace.
The Yemeni armed forces carried out a military operation targeting Abha International Airport using a number of ballistic missiles and drones. The operation successfully achieved its objectives thanks to God. The Saudi enemy, through its reckless decision to launch what it described as an unjust attack on Sanaa International Airport, bears full responsibility and the serious consequences of this aggression, which serves the American-Israeli enemy and all the repercussions resulting from it.
On Thursday, the Houthis doubled down on their threat and warned that they will target Saudi Arabia's oil facilities and other infrastructure if conflict escalates between the two sides.
Saudi government grows angry because it received a response, even though it was a modest one that fell short of the aspirations of this free and courageous people. Nevertheless, it served as a reminder to the Saudi enemy. The real equation is Sanaa Airport for Riyadh Airport, airports for airports, ports for ports, and blockade for blockade. All Saudi oil facilities and vital installations are targets for our missiles and drones if it gets itself involved in a full-scale aggression against our country and moves towards escalation rather than respecting itself, ending the blockade against us, and ceasing its vile and shameless intervention.
The escalation in hostilities between the Houthis and Saudi Arabia has also given rise to concerns that Iran could now start using its Houthi allies close the Bab el-Mandeb gateway to the Red Sea, which would be the second global shipping choke point disrupted after the Strait of Hormuz. Noteworthy is the fact that Yemen has been devastated by a civil war that began in 2014 when the Houthis ousted the government from the capital city of Sanaa. Since then, according to the United Nations, the fighting has reportedly left more than 150,000 people dead and triggered one of the world's worst humanitarian crises, with more than 22 million people in need of some form of aid. The recent escalation in hostilities is once again threatening regional security, something which Yemen and the wider region cannot afford.
With the global cameras focused on the Iran war, has the world forgotten the Palestinians of Gaza? Here's a grim statistic, a reminder of the danger, destruction, and the destitution engulfing the Palestinians. Now, at least about 1,100 Palestinians have been killed and more than 3,600 have been wounded by the Israeli war machine, despite a ceasefire between Hamas and Israel to end the war taking effect on the 10th of October last year, according to the Gaza-based health authorities. In the same period, according to the Israeli military's own estimate, at least 4 Israeli soldiers have died. The dance of death has continued unabated in Gaza, prompting the Palestinians to question, is this even a ceasefire? Our next report tells you more.
The once picturesque coastal enclave of Gaza now resembles a wasteland of rubble. According to Palestinian authorities, since October 7, 2023, more than 73,000 Palestinians, most of them civilians, including women and children, have been killed by Israel's air and ground assaults. Despite an official ceasefire that went into effect on 10th of October last year, near-daily Israeli military strikes, shelling and shootings have continued, killing more than 1,100 Palestinians. The aggrieved and inconsolable lament that the ceasefire is merely in name and has no real effect on the ground. Though the truce has put a halt to major fighting, Palestinians are still being mercilessly killed and children are being orphaned every day. Worse, there is no end in sight to the mayhem being unleashed by the Israeli military.
There's no ceasefire, and every day people die and children are orphaned. How long will this continue? I lost my brother and my father, and my other brother were also martyred. How long will this go on? Enough. Find us a solution, people.
On Tuesday, an Israeli airstrike on a police station in northern Gaza killed 8 people, including a woman officer. A distraught Mohammed Musa, whose nephew was among the 8 people killed in the Israeli airstrike, shudders at the thought of conveying the tragic news to his sister.
This is the second martyr in this family in less than 3 months. The first martyr's blood hasn't dried yet. His mother's tears haven't dried. They crushed his father's heart and it hasn't been soothed. How am I supposed to call his mother? What do I tell her? What do I tell her, people? Do I tell her, your second son has been martyred? I don't have the courage to say these words. Bring anyone in the world, human or inhuman, let them contact the boy's mother and tell her, your son has been martyred.
A couple of days later, in Al-Nusayrat, people were seen inspecting the damage caused to a building by an Israeli strike. One of the helpless residents, Hana Halawa, said they evacuated their building ahead of the strike. The thought of rebuilding her life from scratch is a daunting prospect, a terror-filled new normal in the killing fields of Gaza. Nowhere in Gaza is safe, and a decent and dignified life, a distant dream.
What is this? This is not a truce. This is not a solution for us in Gaza at all. Gaza has people. It has children. They have the right to live a decent and dignified life. I am standing and my nerves are shaking. I don't know where to begin. Where do I start my day? Where do I start my life? This isn't called a truce.
The entire people of Gaza have not lived a single day or a single moment of the ceasefire. This ceasefire is an illusion. There is no safe area in Gaza, honestly. Not the Yellow Line, not the Rashid Street. No place in all of Gaza is safe. All of us are exposed to death, and all of us are exposed to danger because we live under the occupation, under the aggression.
On the same day, the Israeli military reported a significant expansion of its operational footprint in the Gaza Strip, putting more than 60% of the territory now under its control. In May, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had said that he had ordered the IDF to take control of 70% of the Gaza Strip. On Friday, 12 people were killed and more than a dozen others were wounded in separate Israeli strikes, including on mourners leaving a funeral in central Gaza. While international actors watch in deafening silence, the horrors unfolding in the once picturesque coastal enclave, the hungry, desperate, frequently displaced and callously forgotten Palestinians are clinging, barely, to a life of dignity.
And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of World at War. If you want to reach out to me with any comments, feedback or suggestions, please feel free to do so on the ID that you're seeing on your screens. I'm your host, Mohammed Saleh, and I'll see you again next week.